Hello everyone, Eric Chappelle, Civil Community Evangelist here with Autodesk, and with me today is Wes Newman, Senior Manager, Sales and Technical Readiness, also with Autodesk, and Wes is going to be our main presenter today, talking to you about working with GIS data in InfraWorks 360 and Civil 3D. So before we get into that, though, I want to talk to you a little bit about our community and our webcast series. First off, if you're new to the series, this is something we try to do twice a month, and for the most part we do. And we try to stick to first and third Wednesdays of the month schedule. Now things are going to get a little bit messed up next month because of the July 4th holiday. So kind of pay attention to some upcoming dates. But then I think probably in August we'll get back on our first and third schedule again. The goals of the webcast series are to really just generally bring the users of our civil products, primarily Civil 3D and InfraWorks 360, closer to the product team and the folks that actually develop the technology. So a lot of the times our presenters are members of the product team. Today is kind of an exception. Wes is now part of our marketing portion of the company, but he not long ago was part of the product team, so he has works very closely with those folks, and he is one of the most knowledgeable people I know when it comes to this technology, so certainly good to have him here. So that's what our series is about. Just want to tell you what our next webcast is going to be, and take note of the time and date. That's going to be a Thursday, June 23rd, 12 to 1, same time slot, but a different day of the week. So Thursday, June 23rd. And the topic is going to be roundabouts and the integrated workflows with InfraWorks 360, Civil 3D, and Autodesk Vehicle Tracking, or AVT. Presenters will be Mark Burgess and Nigel Peters, and they're two of probably the most knowledgeable people you're ever going to find when it comes to AVT and roundabouts and how this technology works. So you're really getting it right from the source. So watch for, I think the announcement may already be out on where to register for that webcast. You definitely want to check out the community site, the forum, and our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, to get information on how to register for that webcast. That's going to be a good one as well. Again, if you're new, I've been covering this the last few, but we started off with this webcast series being focused primarily on InfraWorks 360, but a few months ago we decided, let's go ahead and bring in the fold all of our Civil 3D customers as well, and we'll make this a civil product webcast series. So now we're including both products, and as you saw with the next topic, even some others where it makes sense, like AVT. You may see some Navisworks, you may even see some Revit or something of that nature in the future as we broaden out to the full AEC portfolio here and there. I want to launch a couple of polls. So let me bring up my polls here. Normally I do one, but I have two if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I think I do have one this time. I'm going to launch this poll. This is new, a little bit different than what we normally provide. I'd like to know what version of InfraWorks 360 you're running. Is it the full license version? Is it the LT version? Is it a trial? Do you not have it installed yet? You're just kind of here because you're curious about what it can do, or because you're a Civil 3D user, or maybe you're not sure what you have. That can be the case as well. So please respond and let us know what version of InfraWorks 360 you're currently using. I'm going to leave that poll open. Let's see, 70% of you have voted, so I'm going to leave that poll open for a few more seconds. I'll try to get this up to about 80, and then I'm going to go ahead and close that down right now. So if you're curious about the results, looks like almost half of you have the full version. 22% of you haven't installed it yet, and that's actually great news because we've got a lot of people on the line who are maybe curious about it or haven't really given it a try yet. I think with some of the things you're going to see in this webcast and others to come are going to be pretty convincing, and you'll give that software a try. Third place is LT, which comes with the suites, and then 7% of you said you had a 30-day trial. Another 7% said you weren't sure. So thanks again for sharing your feedback. And let's talk about our community a bit. Right now, this is the InfraWorks 360 community. As we broaden kind of the scope of our efforts here, this is going to become a civil community. But for now, you'll find the page under autodesk.com/InfraWorks360 community. There you'll see the user forum where you can ask questions, get answers from other users or from the Autodesk product team, which, by the way, is amazingly responsive to in the forums. I think we have the best product team I've ever seen as far as participation in the forums. Idea Station, where you can submit ideas that you'd like to see the product improved. And by the way, we have forums, and we have a forum and Idea Station for Civil 3D as well. InfraTips is their quick, 30-second tips that will help you learn a little part of the software or a little trick that maybe you didn't know. Just something to make you more productive. And I think we've got over 100 of those up there now. We've got our gallery where people share the projects that they're working on in InfraWorks 360, and lots of other stuff as well, including recordings of all of the webcasts. We've been doing this since last April, so we've got quite a library of webcast recordings and other videos as well that have to do with our products. You know, I bring up this disclaimer every time we have a webcast. I don't think Wes is going to cover anything future or preview or labs, but just in case it comes up, please know that anything that falls under that category as a preview feature or a labs feature, there's no guarantee that that feature will actually exist in a future release of the software, and please don't make any purchasing decisions based on that. And finally, before we get rolling, I want to encourage you to ask lots of questions. Unfortunately, because of the size of our audience, we can't open the phone lines, but you do have the questions window. You can type in your questions there. I'm going to be in the background kind of fielding those as best I can. And if things pop up that I think it would be a good idea to interrupt Wes and maybe have them asked on air, we'll go ahead and do that. So please don't hold back on your questions. If we get more than we can handle in the time allotted, we can always follow up later on and with you and maybe get your answers directly after the webcast. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Wes, and he's going to take it from here. So Wes, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can, and I can hear you just fine.
All right, great. I just want to welcome everyone to working with GIS data in Civil 3D and InfraWorks 360. My name is Wes Newman, and I'm the Sales and Technical Readiness Manager for Infrastructure here at Autodesk. So today, just a quick overview agenda. I'm going to be taking you through different GIS data sources, where to get them, and then quickly going to jump into two different products, going to be in Civil 3D and InfraWorks 360, showing you how to utilize basically the same data in either product for different things, and just show you kind of the differences. And it's going to be kind of across the board. I'm going to show you very very beginner type stuff, and then hopefully show a few advanced tips and tricks. So hopefully kind of cover everybody that's in the audience. The main types of data that we're going to go over is really just terrain data, a couple different types of terrain, imagery, and then of course all the geometry, points, lines, and polygons. And within that, with InfraWorks, I'm going to show you a little bit of scripting and analysis and show you how to leverage some of that stuff. So here is people a lot of times that will ask me, well, where do I go get the data? And this is kind of my thought process behind looking for data when I start a project. I usually go kind of in a hierarchical level there. I always go to the public places first. I start at the national level, and usually that's the kind of the lower quality data. And then, kind of goes down from there. I'll then go into the state, county, city. A lot of times I'll also go to the universities and look for for data there. And most times this is freely available data. I have seen some cities and counties charging for some of the GIS data, but typically this is freely available. You can also get private data. You can purchase data out there. There's a lot of different providers for that. And then the different types, of course, there's local type data. You know, that's going to be file formats, shape files, things like that. And there's also connecting to databases, and then also a service. So if you're looking at, for instance, WMS or WFS, you can also connect to those services through Civil 3D, Map 3D, and InfraWorks 360. And so that's generally my thought process, and I'll usually just go out there and start Google searching, you know, these type of city names in GIS or county names in GIS, and that'll get you usually in the right spot there, and you can start drilling down and looking, find data to download. So that's what I've done today, is I've downloaded a bunch of data. I'm also going to connect to some other types of online data and just kind of show you a smattering of different data sources. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to cover is terrain data and how to attach terrain data to both Civil 3D and InfraWorks 360. There are a lot of different types of terrain data and a lot of different types of formats. You know, probably the simplest type of data that we see out there a lot of times is contour data in the form of, you know, anything from a DXF, DWG to a shapefile. Then there's also the NED, the National Elevation Data Set, which basically is the USGS DEMs that you can go out there and download. There's also, you know, raster is a big format that's used to store elevation data in now. Anything from geotiffs and a lot of other formats there are considered actually a raster file. And then we also have LiDAR data that you can build surfaces from. And a lot of times the LiDAR is classified and scrubbed down and put in one of these other formats like a raster file or something like that to make it easier to leverage. So I'm going to go ahead and drop into the products now and show you how to attach some terrain data in each one of these. So first thing I want to talk about, I'm here in Civil 3D 2017, which is of course built on Map 3D, and we're going to be utilizing some of that functionality there as well. So I'm going to be switching in between the workspaces a little bit today. If you're not familiar with workspaces, you can just go up here and you can go to Civil 3D, or you can go to the planning analysis, which is basically the map workspace. I like to switch in between those two quite a bit. I'm going to open up a drawing first, and this is going to be just a blank drawing. There is one thing I want to discuss first. A lot of times when you're working with GIS data, the first thing you want to do to your drawing is actually set a coordinate system. I've got a coordinate system set in here, and that way when you're attaching data, it knows how to properly transform it into your drawing. All that kind of happens on the fly with Map 3D and with InfraWorks 360. And so that's really the only thing I've done in this drawing is set up a coordinate system. The next thing I want to do is actually show you, before I talk about terrain, is set my project area so that I've got a spot I can zoom into and look at. And there's a couple different ways to attach GIS data. You can go through the map W space and attach it there, and then that's kind of a reference basically to that data. You can also do what's called a map import. Sometimes I like to do that if I don't need a connection to that data and I just want to bring in something, you know, and utilize it. A lot of times if I want to manipulate it and just use it for my drawing, I'll do that. So I've got an extents file that basically has a single polygon in it, and that's really it. So there you can see this polygon, and I go over here, you can see it's I'm just going to explode it so I can get rid of that fill there, that hatch. And so that's just basically my general area that we're going to be working in today that I've already set up for us. So the next thing I want to show you is how to build some terrain from GIS data. I'm going to go over here and show you, I've got everything kind of broken up today into multiple folders. I'm going to be going back and forth, so you can see here my extents file and a few other little things in here. Then I've got all these different folders, broken all my GIS data up into. So for instance, this elevation data, I've got a couple different shape files and some TIFF files, and some of them are kind of small, some of them are large. This TIFF here, that's a basically, like I said, it's a rasher file, but it's not really meant for imagery. It's got elevation data as an attribute to each pixel, basically, and they use that for creating the terrain model. And this one's actually created from LiDAR. It's been reduced down and then created a TIFF from it, ARC TIFF. So what I want to do now is show you how to actually generate a couple different surfaces in InfraWorks and in Civil 3D and InfraWorks from this contour data. And so the easiest way to do that is go up here and go to Surfaces and go to Create Surface from GIS Data. And I'm going to give this a quick name here. I'm going to call this one From Contours. And then we're just going to walk through here. This is a shapefile. Just select the shapefile, and I've got this cropped down to make it a little bit smaller. Click Login, and we're going to bring in the contours. We could do some querying here if we want to make it smaller. And then we can also map some data over if we want to map a property over, but we're not going to do that. We're going to click Finish here and click OK. And this is going to process for a minute. Like I said, this is a pretty healthy file here, a lot of contours. And so while that's processing, I'm going to move over to InfraWorks and kind of set up the same thing. So I'm going to go over here to InfraWorks, and you know, traditionally you've probably seen us utilizing Model Builder to start a model. Before Model Builder, you just had the general before that you had to add all your data, and so that's how I'm going to start today. Is I'm just going to start with a fresh model and build it up from there. So I'm just going to click here and go to Create a New Model, and I'm just going to store this one locally on my computer and call this one Civil 3D InfraWorks GIS. And here again, notice we can set up a model extents. I'm going to load this from a file, and it's actually going to be the exact same file that I specified earlier in Civil 3D. So I've got this extents file. Click Open here. I use the first polygon. It's really the only thing in there. And click OK. That's going to kick us off a model and should set the extents there for us. So there you can see it's basically the same polygon, no data sources in here, and we're ready to basically start building up our terrain. I'll go back over here and check our Civil 3D. So there you can see a portion of this shapefile has been brought in, or the shapefile has been brought in. It's a smaller portion, and so we actually need to add additional data with that. But first I'm going to go over to InfraWorks and add that same data in so you can see it over there. So the first thing we want to do is attach a shapefile, and there's many different types of files you can attach in InfraWorks, obviously, and you know, depending on how you want to utilize them, the first thing you need to do is specify the actual format, and then you configure it and you can tell it what it's going to be. So again, we're going to go over here and we're going to grab this same contours file. And notice here on the type here, a lot of times with a shape file you're going to configure it to be a road or something like that. Well, in this case we're actually going to pick terrain, and that's basically it. You can go over here to converter and you can change this and make the grid size smaller or bigger to refine the surface data. But I'm just going to leave it like this. Hit close and refresh, and again it's going to process and create the terrain. You notice that it's that same general corner there that we had. So now want to show you a different method in both Civil 3D and InfraWorks of attaching terrain data. So the next thing I want to do is go over here to surfaces and go to, we're going to create a surface from a DEM. And in this case, I've got this, this small bit of LiDAR data here. I'm going to click open. And that's basically it. So you can see it's pretty quickly brought in that terrain data. It's underneath this other data, and these contours seem to actually line up pretty close. One of them was built obviously from contours, one of them was built from some sort of grid elevation there, and so it's pretty simple. Another very simple, easy way to create a surface in Civil 3D from LiDAR data or from a DEM. Again, you can pick different formats there. If I go back through here, you can see we've got DEMs and TIFFs and ASCs and ADFs, text files. So we're going to go do the same thing in InfraWorks actually now. Go back over here. And this time, instead of shapefile, we're actually going to pick raster. And we can pick LiDAR small here. Or we can do the bigger one. Notice this is actually for 2 counties worth of data, but if it'll bring it in pretty rapidly. If we go through here and we can clip this down if we want. Just do a quick close and refresh here, and now we've basically built our terrain. A lot of times people ask me, well, when you start bringing in multiple terrain files, how does it handle that? There's basically one surface in InfraWorks and everything's merged together. You can go up here and hit this order, and you'll notice basically what you can do is whatever's on top is going to win. Last one in wins. You can also manage the order. So if I wanted to move this down and have the contours that in that area override the bigger surface, I could do that. So you just move these up and down. Very similar how you would do it with a pasted surface definition in Civil 3D. Okay, so that's a little bit about terrain. So the next thing I wanted to cover is a little bit about imagery. There's a lot of different ways to bring in imagery in Civil 3D, and also a little bit of different ways to do it in InfraWorks 360. Again, you can connect to local databases, local imagery, just files. You can utilize Bing in both, like I said, Model Builder, or you can use the geolocation stuff in Civil 3D. You can also connect to WMS in both products for things like what you see here, bringing in a FEMA map or other type of imagery. So I'm going to show you those. So real quick, in Civil 3D, I'm going to go to my surface properties here and turn both of these to just border only. Turn that to no display. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is bring in a little bit of data. The easiest way, or to imagery, the easiest way to do it in Civil 3D is to go over here to your geolocation tab, and again you need to set your coordinate system up, and then you can just go over here and turn on your online map. This is real handy. I use it probably every single day. A lot of times I will use it to just for a project background. Also use it to check data. So when you're importing data and you want to make sure it's in the right coordinate system or even land in the right spot, you can do that. So this is basically the same data that's used in InfraWorks 360 as well when you go through Model Builder. You can also attach your own data. So I'm going to go here, turn the map off, and then go over here and switch. Let's switch to the planning and analysis real quick. And I like to turn on the map workspace just so I can see a listing of all the data that I'm building up. And again, to attach imagery through this method, you go to Data and you do Connect to Data, and you can attach your own raster here. So if I go over here and just start browsing to find this image, and you connect to it. So there's a lot of different types of formats there, TIFF and everything else. Notice here I need to actually set the coordinate system on this one. It wasn't set. So I know this one. It's actually the same coordinate system that I have. So this gives you a chance to override this. And we're going to click Add to Map. And there you can see we've quickly imported a very large InfraWorks, a very large image file. So you can utilize these different checkboxes to turn the data on and off. And notice you can also change the order of display here. So you can move these things up and down, and it will actually change which one's going to be on top and which one's going to be on bottom there. You can also use the draw order to do that. I like to use the groups and drag them up and down. So to do this in InfraWorks, you do a very similar thing. If we want to utilize the Bing imagery in a model that wasn't built from InfraWorks, you can do that. A lot of people don't know that you can do that. You simply go over here to add data source, and the connection type is going to be Bing Maps, and click OK, and OK. Then we're going to configure it. Notice here this gives us a chance to change the tile level if we want. We can crank that up to like a 1-foot pixel resolution if we want. I'm going to hit close and refresh here. This is going to take a few moments here to pull down and process. While that's happening, I want to show you a way to bring in data through a WMS. So I'm going to turn off the mosaic here, and we're going to go over here and connect to some new data. And this time we're going to connect to a WMS, and this is basically a map service that you can connect to online and pull down the data automatically. And Map 3D is really good about refreshing this, and you can resample, do a lot of different things there. So I need to grab my link. Just one second.
Wes, while you're doing that, can I float a question at you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So somebody asked,
Yep.
What's the best method to get imagery into InfraWorks 360 LT? And my initial response was that, basically anything you're showing except Model Builder. That Bing Maps connection that you showed in InfraWorks a moment ago, is that available in LT?
I don't know. I'd have to unlicense and try that in LT. I don't know if that's available.
So we're not
I
sure
just don't know.
at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that question. Yeah, because I haven't run LT to tell you the truth. So that's something I'll look into.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Follow up on that. Yep, absolutely. So just want to make sure I grab the right. Make sure I grab the right. So this is the link that I'm going to use to grab some FEMA data. And basically, we're going to paste in the server name, pick your version. A lot of times you don't have to pick it. If you know it, you can. It's going to prompt you to log in. Simply, this one, there's no credentials needed, so I click login. Sometimes I may have copied the wrong thing here. Yeah, it's not wanting to connect right now, so I'm going to move on from that. I'll have to look at that in just a second here. But let's go back to InfraWorks real quick. So there we've got our Bing imagery brought in. If we want to bring in that same aerial image to InfraWorks, you do the same thing. You basically go to raster, and we can bring in this same data. So if I want to bring in this this bigger aerial image, we can do that. So I would back over here to grab this big ortho, and we can bring that in, just reconfigure. And again, no coordinate system on this one, so I have to specify it there. I can key it in, or I can browse, very similar. And have to import this one. So again, this one is going to take a few minutes because of the size of it. So what I want to do is go back to Civil 3D. And there's my problem on this. Actually, I copied the wrong link. So I want to look at open up this XML file and utilize this piece here. What I'd done is I'd copied the WFS instead of the WMS, and one of them's for imagery and one of them's for there we go. One of them's for features. Okay, so here you can see I've connected into the FEMA server, and we can pick different types of images we want to bring in. So for instance, if I want to bring in the flood zones, I can do that and click add to map. Again, you're going to have to give this a second to download and bring in. And there you can see it start to come in. If I turn on my ortho, you can see it's overlaying. And as we zoom in here, you'll see this actually will resample itself. You can also notice how it resamples. When you're zoomed out far, it's just got lower resolution imagery, and you zoom in farther, and it's going to get a little finer. So that's how you do bring in WMS files in Civil 3D. Let me show you how to do it in InfraWorks. So here's our, again, we've got our aerial image attached, and now we're ready to overlay it with some additional data. If we want to attach a FEMA data in here through WMS, it's not as straightforward as Map 3D or Civil 3D. But it can be done. So if you noticed, I had that XML file. We need to utilize this XML file to specify the actual data source and the data window. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through how I created this, or I'm going to show you how to attach it, and then I'll walk you through how I created it. So what we want to do is go and attach raster here, and then we're going to browse to this actual XML file. So that's the only thing that's in this XML file is this data. It's got the URL, it's got the coordinate system, and some other stuff I'm going to explain to you. We're going to click open here, and then we're just going to quickly configure this. And the only thing I'm going to do here is set a color mask, which is basically the transparent color. I'm going to pick white and do a close and refresh here. And now it's going to go out and retrieve that data from FEMA and overlay it. So if I zoom out here, you can see it's the actual same data that we have in Civil 3D. So if I go over here to Civil 3D and we go to the right spot, here's the same basic location here. You can see it takes a second to repopulate. Go back to Civil 3D. So here are InfraWorks. So there's the same type of data in InfraWorks. So now let me kind of take you through this, how to create this XML file real briefly. So if you notice here, you can pretty much copy paste this. We can make this available to you. So you just take the URL that you want to get to, and then you also need to know the layer number. 4 is the one for the zones, the hazard zones, and then you need to specify the limits that you want to bring in, and then the size of the actual image file. And so the upper limits I actually get from my model properties. So if I come over here and go to model properties, I can get the X and Y, all this information I need from there, and simply paste it into here. And then for the size of the X and size of the Y, I usually start with the, like 3000 for the size of the X. And then you need to find the appropriate aspect ratio from your model. And so what I do is I end up subtracting the 2 X's. That'll give you a number. And then you subtract the 2 Y's, and that'll give you the other size number. Okay? And then you divide the 2, and you'll get your aspect ratio, and you multiply that by 3000 and round to an even number, and that'll give you the size for your X and Y, depending on which way you come there. But that's essentially how you come up with the size of the X and Y for the pixels. And then you can bring in and overlay this data. And again, the same thing applies here. If I go over here to my visibility, you'll notice that I've got my terrain surfaces. I've also got my imagery, and so you can see here's my Bing imagery on the bottom. That's why you can't see it. Then I have this SID file on the top, and then I have the XML file. So if I want to turn off this SID and just see Bing and the flood, I can do that. I'll take it a second here to repopulate. And if you had a smaller piece, so if you had higher resolution data as well, it's just going to lay on top of it. So whatever, it's going to show you whatever's underneath. Okay, so that's a little bit about imagery. Moving on. So I showed you how to attach some local data for that SID file. We use Bing, geospatial stuff. In Civil 3D, and also showed you how to attach it in InfraWorks, and then showed you how to connect through a WMS server in both Civil 3D and InfraWorks 360. All right, so the next thing, this is kind of starting to get into the heart of everything here. We've got all of the different geometry data. So I'm going to show you how to attach a bunch of different types. Got transportation, some buildings, zoning, survey monuments, and then additional FEMA data. Then in InfraWorks, I'm going to show you how to do some scripting and analysis with all of that. So that's where we're going to end up. All right, so back to Civil 3D now. So first I'm going to show you how to attach everything in Civil 3D. So again, I'm going to turn off this this mosaic here. Turn off our FEMA for right now. Then I'm going to go and start attaching data. I'm just going to go to Connect Data, and these are all actually shape files. So first thing I'm going to do is bring in transportation. So this is essentially street center lines. And the coordinate system's already set. We just add the map. And then you'll notice in the background it's going to start adding in data. That's a yellow line right now. I'll show you how to change the color of that in just a second. So I'm just going to continue building all of this up. So we'll add in our buildings now. These are just basically polygons. And we'll continue adding data. Got some zoning data. And then one more. We've actually got some survey monuments from the city. There, and now you can see we've attached quite a bit of data here. Some of it's on top of others and it's harder to see, so I'll show you how to manipulate that right now. First thing I want to do is let's change these streets to something a little easier to see. So we're going to go just right-click on our streets layer and do edit style, and then we can just go over here and click the style button. I'm just going to simply change the color, something a little, let's go a dark blue. Change it one more time. So you can see we're starting to change the data there. So we're going to make it something even more visible, like red, make it stand out. If you notice in these areas here that it's harder to see, that's actually because of the display order. If you notice, it's down farther below the building footprints and the zoning. So for instance, if we want the zoning underneath the streets, we just drag it underneath, and notice what happens. Both the buildings and the streets start standing out from one another because this is actually underneath here. And so the zoning's underneath, and then we have the streets and building footprints and the survey monuments. A lot of times I'll actually open up the data in both Civil 3D and InfraWorks 360. A lot of times I utilize Map 3D or Civil 3D to look at the data and maybe look at some of the attribution and decide how I want to best utilize that in InfraWorks 360. And to do that, we can just simply, the easiest way to do is pick one of these GIS pieces of data and then right-click on it and do Show Data Table. And that's going to bring up the data table, and it's automatically going to pick the proper layer here. Notice we have all of our layers, and it's actually going to select that actual road. And then it's going to show you all of the attributes that apply to this piece of road. So notice it's got a name, it's got a classification, a bunch of other types of information here, who the domain is or the owner basically, the number of lanes. So we can start picking some of this other data and it'll hop to that. We can start just moving through the data and deciding, if we're going to attach that in InfraWorks, how we can best utilize that. So now that we've kind of got a bit of a model built up, you can see it's actually pretty large. It's a whole city here. It attaches pretty quickly and it's easy to move around in. If we go to, for instance, our survey monuments, you can see all the different information on there. Those are actually just simple, just points. So if I select one and do a zoom to, it's going to zoom us to that guy. And this one's, a city monument, tells us the type, when it was last checked. It's actually got a link in here that we're going to leverage. So let's take this over to InfraWorks and start building that up now. So again, next thing we want to do over here is very similar workflow. We're just going to attach the shapefile. And we're going to start building this out. First thing I want to do is attach this transportation. This is just the streets. And then after you attach it, you need to configure it. And this isn't the only way to attach data. You can also use a drag and drop. I'm going to pick the types. This is going to be a road. You can also come through here and just do a real simple style here, and we'll bring it in just to kind of take a look at how everything looks. Just do a close and refresh here. Let it bring that data in. And we'll just zoom in here and start taking a look at it. Notice it just brought in a little bit of two-lane data. There's not a lot of information in there. And so this is where we may want to start leveraging some of the GIS data to maybe give it a name and pull that information from the GIS file. This is where you may want to utilize InfraWorks, Civil 3D to look at the data. So if I pull back out and go grab one of these roads here, show that, now we can see the actual name. So this is the name column. So if we want to map this attribute over, we can move that over. If we want to map maybe the classification over, we can move that. We can utilize some of this existing lane information. So we can start building up the different data. And so what I've done is for instance, if we go over to this road in InfraWorks and we reconfigure, notice we have our name here. We can hit this drop down. This shows us all of the attributes that are inside of that shapefile. So we can start to utilize that information and maybe map something over. So for instance, we want to bring in this name here, hit close and refresh, let it reprocess this for a second. There, you notice now when I select it, I actually get the name up here in the properties pane. So we could continue to map all that information over, or we can kind of build some stuff up and maybe write a little bit of a script. So if we double click on this guy, if you notice when I select the script tab, notice what's happening here as I start to fill out this dialogue. All of it's basically building a script for us on the fly. Notice how I mapped the name over to the source F name. So if I come over here to name, F name, it's building a script for us on the fly. Well, we can fill this in and do some math or some other types of things here, or do some if statements. So for instance here, I'm going to go and click edit. That's going to allow us to edit the script, and it's going to dither out the rest of the dialogue. So I've already got a script pre-built. I'm going to walk you through. So if I open up this roads, I'm going to show you this. This is basically I can just copy paste this. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Just paste over this guy. Again, notice got the same name. I'm also using the highway domain and putting that in the user data field so we can use that. And then I am leveraging the existing lanes. So I'm going to be able to change the number of lanes in my roads depending on an attribute. So notice the thing I do here is if it's less than or equal to 0, so for instance if that field was empty, I go ahead and make it just a 2-lane road. And then if it is a single lane road, I just tell it only do 1 lane forward, no lanes backwards. And then since this one doesn't have information on forward and backwards lanes, I just take the existing lanes and divide it by 2 and use that for the roads, for the backwards and forwards. And then you notice here I'm looking at the class of the road, and if it's freeway or expressway, or if it's a principal arterial, I use this interstate street 2-lane. And then for everything else, I'm just going to use sidewalk and green spaces. So there's a I could continue to go on and on. So if I had more information on the class, I could break out and do a different type of style. Or if I had other information, I could utilize that to stylize the road appropriately. I'm just going to do a close and refresh here. And now you can see again the style of this road changed, and when I select it, you'll notice here again we have the name of the road, and down at the bottom the description says unclassified, and so we know that that's the type of the road. And then the user data here, that was the owner that I filled in. So if I scroll out and look at some of this other data, so for instance going into this interstate, you can see we've got a few more lanes actually, and if I select this, notice that it's a freeway expressway, and that the owner is the state on it. So you know, by just leveraging a little bit of scripting, we can build out the model fairly quickly. So I want to do the same thing with buildings now. I'll add in another shapefile. Tell it that it's buildings, and then we can do the same thing. I've already got a script pre-built for this one as well. I'll show you what that looks like. This one looks a little longer, but don't let it intimidate you. If we go over here to the script tab, it's already pretty long because it's randomizing the facade colors, and I just had to copy paste that information in there. And so really the heart of the script is right here. So I'm just going to paste this new one in here, and I'll just quickly walk through this. And so essentially what I'm doing here is there's not a whole lot of information on building height for this one, so I'm going to have to randomize the building heights, or I can set a standard height. But what I did to have available to me is the actual area of the polygon, and so I'm using that attribute and deciding what I should do with the building heights based on that, and also the facades. And so if you notice here, if the area is less than 8,000 square feet, which basically I'm considering that like a residential building or something like that, then I'm going to randomize the height basically between 10 and 20 feet, and then I'm going to randomize the height in between the slope as well. And then I will randomly select from 3 different roof materials, and randomly select from 5 different facade styles. And then I do the same thing. So if it's over 8,000 feet, then I set a roof slope of 0. So I'm going to say it's kind of like an office building or something like that, and I'm going to set a slope of 0. And then I've got a different set of roof materials and a different set of facades as well. So I'll just quickly do a close and refresh there, and we'll build the city out. So you can see we've got all of our buildings brought in. So the smaller ones have sloped roof, and the taller, the bigger ones are a little taller. And you know, it may not be exactly how the city looks, but if you're wanting to just do a rough approximation, you can do that. You can also use a number of floors and multiply by a value. I see that done a lot. All right, so continue to build this up. I'm going to bring in some zoning now. And this is one thing I like to do with the zoning. It's going to be a coverage area, and sometimes coverage areas can kind of be touchy, and they kind of get in the way sometimes with the aerial imagery. And so I'm going to show you a way that you can kind of keep them behind the scenes. You can, of course, give them whatever you want for a color, but I'm going to make them completely transparent, so you're not even going to be able to see them. And then I'm going to go to let's do description, and this is going to be the ZD, that's the actual zoning ID. And then I'm going to go to tooltip, that's the description. I'm going to go to HTML, and I'm going to add in a tag, and it's going to be the description. Click OK, and we'll do a close and refresh. And so if you notice, if I click, these zones are actually here. I've mapped my description over, and if I hover over one of them, the tooltip should pop up there. What I like to do a lot of times is actually go, since they get kind of clicky when you're actually selecting the aerial image, a lot of times we use that to deselect things in InfraWorks. I will actually go over to the Model Explorer and I will lock the coverage areas. Okay, so when I do that, I actually don't select them now. Okay, but I can do other things. I can still leverage them. So for instance, if I go over to let's see here, to feature themes, I can create a feature theme and theme those so we can actually be something that we can look at. So if I go over here to coverage areas, I go select the property description, and then for the distribution I'm going to select individual values. So we got like 31 different zoning types. I'll click OK, and there you can quickly see now I've zoned all of this data, and it's pretty easy to toggle on and off. Okay, so we can look at the information pretty easily. It's not kind of in our face, but when we want to see it, it's right there. If you want to see individual ones, you can do something. You can create what's called a subset. I use that a lot. So I'll go over here to the Model Explorer, and I'll unlock the coverage area for right now. And then I'm going to do create subset, and we're going to build up a query essentially. And so we're going to go to common, and this one's going to be description, and we're going to put in an equal, and then we're going to find the actual value we want by going over here and selecting the property. We're going to go to description, and let's do RSF4. We'll click it, it'll fill in, click OK, and then I'm going to call this RSF4, and notice what happens. It automatically selects that for us. Okay. But if we actually want to see that, what we can do is we can change the highlight color. So for instance, if I want to set that to like this color and then toggle on the highlighting, we can do that. And notice what happens there. So we've just got our RSF4 highlighted. So we're able to kind of start excluding out different pieces or turning them on and off, and so we could build up additional subsets and turn them on at different times there. So I've got one more little piece I want to show you, and then that's going to finish it off here. So I'm going to attach the survey monuments. And we're going to make these points of interest. And for the rule style here, we're just going to pick one of these flag pins. And then we could start building this up again and going over here to the table, modifying the scale. So if I want this, kind of large, I can make these defined. We could do like 50, 50, 50. And then come over to our script. If we hit edit, you notice all this gets filled in. We can start modifying everything from there. I do have a script already written. There's not a whole lot in here. If you notice, I'm taking the description and I'm actually concatenating a bunch of the different attributes together and separating them by a comma so that I can see kind of a bigger description. And I'm also mapping over the link button. Okay, I'm sorry, the link field. So what that will do is give me a hyperlink. So if I do close and refresh now, and I go over here to Model Explorer, you notice what happens when I've got my flag here for a survey monument, and when I zoom out to a specific place, they disappear. And that's got to do with the level of detail. And so if you want to see them all the time, you just come over here to Model Explorer and toggle on the toggle off the adaptive LOD. and now we can see all of the survey monuments. They're obviously in kind of a grid fashion. If I select one of them, notice the information that I have here. So it's a city monument. Tells us all that information that I concatenated is right there. And then we also have that link. And so notice what happens when I hover over something with a link. I get the little hand icon. If I double click on that guy, it'll actually launch that link for us. And so this goes up to the city's GIS website and pulls down that PDF, and so we could actually see the condition of that monument. Notice that one is still good. You can also do things like, let's see here, let's grab one of these. Notice how this one is destroyed. So if we want to maybe find how many monuments were destroyed, we can come over here and do that. So that's on our tag. So I'm going to come over here to points of interest, right click, and we're just going to do a quick filter select. And then we're going to do a common and tag. We're going to do equals, and we will do find our tag, and then get the exact spelling is destroyed. Click OK. And notice what happens. It selects all of those guys for us and gives us a count up here. So we know there's 27. So you can kind of use that filter select, and you can do concatenations or do ors and ands and stuff with those as well. And so I just want to show you, you have that ability in InfraWorks. Sometimes those things are kind of hidden, but you can use all these tools to start doing some analysis and manipulating the data in any way that you see fit. So now I'm running short on time. I want to attach one more data type, and that will finish this up for today. So we'll go over here to Shape, FEMA, and so what I've done here is I've actually brought in the FEMA data, the actual line work, and this time, a lot of times I like to utilize pipelines to show line work. So for instance here I'm going to show, I use a red pipe, I'm going to make it 20 feet. This is basically going to give us a line here. And then one thing I'm going to show you is how to filter out data or filter in. So I'm going to actually go in here to text, and I go to it's water name. It's equal to, find this. No. Actually got the wrong one. I'm going to attach the hazard line. That was the actual center line that I attached. Same thing. Source, and again, this is taking us to the same type of filter here. Line type. And this is going to be equals, and so I only want to bring in a specific line type here. And notice only want to bring in the boundary. It's also got like the firm panel edges and things like that, so I don't want those. Click OK, do a close and refresh. And same thing, Model Explorer, pipelines, turn off the adaptive LOD, and you can see we've traced over the 100 and 500 year floodplains there. So with that, that's going to conclude. This presentation. So I just want to hand it back over to Eric and open it up for Q&A.
Nice job, Wes. As you mentioned, we are out of time, so I'm actually going to just remind everyone of our next upcoming webcast, which has to do with roundabouts, integrated workflows with InfraWorks 360, Civil 3D, and AVT. Please note the special date. This one's on a Thursday, June 23rd, from 12 to 1. So you definitely want to check that out. And we hope to see you all there, and some friends too. So be sure to spread the word about our webcast series to the folks you know that use these products. Thanks again, Wes, for a great presentation. Thanks to everyone who attended, and have a great day. See ya.